The Last Ride, it's everything that people have been talking about, and we finally got the last episode. It was very special, very emotional, and it's finally settling in that Undertaker might not be able to wrestle anymore. So what's going to happen with The Last Ride? We're going to find out about the final episode right now. Let's go. What's up, everybody? It's Aidan Sports Show, and welcome back to another video. This is going to be Undertaker's Last Ride, Chapter 5, End of the Road review. And this is a very good one, to be honest. I recommend you guys go watch this if you haven't already. But this is going to be a reaction review. I'm giving my opinions out there and etc, man. Hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show. Turn notifications on. Help share the video and the playlist. Help spread awareness of this YouTube channel. And yeah, this is gonna be good, man. Let's get into it. So it first off started with the Undertaker basically being content with his retirement after Extreme Rules. So Extreme Rules, this was the obviously for back in the last episode with Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, and Shane McMahon, and they had a very good match, very good movement. The Undertaker, he felt amazing, and he thought, this is the last time. This is the last time that I'm done after this. I have no desire to get into the ring. That was basically his mentality at that time. And while doing that, he ended up kind of saying, I'll see over time. It's going to take a lot to get me back in there, but at the moment, maybe I could have a few matches left in me, but I just don't want to test my luck. This match was amazing, and I'm going to leave it at that. So it went on to the reasons why, in a way, and it went on to all those times where he wanted to be a father, but not necessarily focus on the WWE or the in-ring competition, and how his neck, potentially breaking his neck, could have potentially taken him out for good, for life, and could have easily been very damaging to his life. Potentially could have been the end of his life. So it's nothing. It's a dangerous sport, the WWE. It just is. Like, you can't really escape the fact that there could potentially be life-threatening injuries when you perform. People sign up for this. People are dedicated and are willing to take those risks. Majority of the time, it's safe, but there's always that one circumstance where something happens and something goes wrong that could potentially be career-threatening, could potentially be life-threatening. And for the Undertaker, he nearly experienced that with Goldberg. So it's fair. This is where respect comes to all athletes, not necessarily just the Undertaker. All athletes deserve respect for what they do in the ring, just for the purpose of entertaining us. They're willing to put out their lives at risk to do something they love and to entertain us. So it's fantastic to see the actual amount of people that respect the Undertaker for doing that, and that goes for any superstar. Even if you don't like wrestling, but you still do it. Like, a lot of people just do it for the money, whatever. The fact is that you're putting your life on the line, and it is majority for the time is for money or for us or both. So it deserves respect regardless, and that really shined the light on a lot of superstars that did the exact same thing Undertaker did. And all of the legends, all of the people in the roster today, even all the people that don't get any recognition for being a professional wrestler, they deserve all the respect in the world for what they do. And again, wrestling's a very difficult sport. It's not like any other sport. It's so grueling, and only a few select sports can top WWE for being grueling, and they deserve their respect, as do everybody else. So fair play on that. And yeah, that meant a lot. Ended up going into him going on to the Steve Austin podcast. Now, before all this, he talked about his dad as well, and I do want to mention that real quick. Obviously, his dad was his biggest supporter and his biggest motivator as well. So in a way, when the Undertaker decided to go into professional wrestling and decided to quit basketball, the Undertaker's dad, being the person he wants the best for his son, obviously, like most fathers would, he would say that, like, it's the biggest mistake you'd make in your life. Obviously, you're not going to turn down a scholarship, but he did, and it worked out very well. And of course, when things work out well, anybody's going to be happy, or your entire family's going to be happy if things work out for you. So yeah, that's a good sight to see, man. Even though he's just trying to do what's best, even in Undertaker's choice going against his father, he was still able to be proud of him for what he's done. And now the Undertaker has to do the same for his family as well. It's just the cycle of life. You do what you think is best, but as long as it works out, you'll be happy. That's just the way that it goes, really. And yeah, so after that, it went on to the Stone Cold podcast, and you finally got to see Undertaker in his true colors, the way that he really is, the Mark Calloway behind the Undertaker. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that went on in that podcast. Again, if you haven't seen that podcast on WWE Network, go watch it. It's a good watch. And you really got to see, the first time in a while, really, or if ever, the behind the scenes of The Undertaker. What's actually going on in his mind as a father, as a potential retirement match blooming, or if he was ever going to get back in the ring again. A lot of things that went on. But basically, on the short end of things, Undertaker said he wants to go out on a match that's fitting for himself. He doesn't want anybody else to tell him when he wants to leave. He wants to do it on his own terms. He wants to write his own chapter. And by doing this, it gave the opportunity for AJ Styles to actually see if he could knock on the door and see if he could get a match with The Undertaker. And that's how things started. And this is why this is probably my favorite episode, because I got to see how things really started. And it all started from Stone Cold's podcast. That's how things really started. So AJ Styles calls The Undertaker, asks him, hey man, like, I know it's leaning like you might want to actually do another match. Even if you don't want to, just think about it. I'd really like to verse you at WrestleMania, even if it's your last match. And Undertaker, I think Undertaker definitely respected AJ Styles. And look, there's one thing I have to say about AJ Styles. If you can call him whatever nickname you want, you can call him the face that runs the place, the house that AJ Styles built. The one thing that can never be questioned is that AJ Styles, and this is why this nickname catches on so much, he is phenomenal. He is arguably the best wrestler in the world, even till this day. Despite how old he is still a fantastic, incredible, world-class, probably the best in the world wrestler at the moment. And it's definitely befitting for Undertaker to have his last match, if this is his last match, against the best in the world. Undertaker admitted himself later in the episode, there's not many people, if any, besides AJ Styles that he would come back for. So that's a huge statement. And it only just makes AJ Styles' career even better, and it only solidifies how great he really is. And I hope one day what's happening to The Undertaker now with his podcast will happen with AJ Styles, because the guy is class, and he definitely deserves a lot of respect for what he's done around the world in multiple wrestling organizations. So no one needs to deny their love for AJ Styles. Even if he's a bad guy, that you boo him, everybody loves AJ Styles. It's just the way that it is. There's no going around it. It's there because you know he's so good, and he does it for the sake of doing it, not just because he has to. And that's a good thing as well. It's a good attitude to have. So fair play. Undertaker obviously sees this thing, respects AJ Styles. He wants to get it done. But he wasn't 100% committed at the moment. During this time. So obviously through a bit of commitment, he would end up making the decision, and we all know the decision that he made. Of course, he ended up doing it. But a lot of that had to go through the NXT and the youth development. So Undertaker promised his time in Orlando, Florida to go and help the younger guys. And this seems like to be a common thing for some of the greatest of all times to shed their knowledge. And it's just a common thing. I feel like even from the older times where there wasn't really much of a NXT, it was more of a basically Tough Enough and OVW, but they just weren't anywhere near the level that NXT was. And just going sharing some information, sharing some light, sharing some unique abilities, techniques, all of that. Basically, The Undertaker was giving himself a way for these superstars to pick their knowledge and to learn and to adapt, and to hopefully some of these superstars will become the best in the world today. Hopefully some of them will become the future of the company, and that's what sharing information helps you do. Helps you establish yourself, identify yourself, and ultimately become a better person just by getting that experience with The Undertaker. So many superstars were brought in to actually learn from The Undertaker. From Roman Reigns, Keith Lee, Kevin Owens. You had a bunch of superstars that we all know today, and a lot of them, even though they were well established before The Undertaker, they were still better just by learning from The Undertaker. They became a better version of themselves. So yeah, and by doing this, he felt good. He said he would do the match. Going on to pretty much the actual rivalry itself, obviously Undertaker returns at Saudi Arabia to beat AJ Styles in the, I don't know what it was. I think it was some sort of tournament. I can't remember the tournament. Then he goes on to AJ Styles to cross every single boundary that the Undertaker normally would never allow anybody to cross. And AJ Styles, even though it wasn't technically said, AJ Styles knew what he was doing here. He wanted to get the best out of The Undertaker, and he pulled every single trigger under the sun to make sure he did it, attacking his wife, his children, his name, his legacy, how he's a washed up old man. Everything you could possibly think of, AJ Styles brought into this. And it got the best out of The Undertaker. But not only did it get the best out of The Undertaker, it got a version that I've been dying to see since, obviously, because if anybody doesn't know, a majority of you, if not all of you, don't know, I've been watching back a lot of WWE back into the 2000s, so 2003 is where I'm up to at the moment. And I love the Badass Undertaker, and that's who we got this WrestleMania, and that's pure excitement because just by watching at that area of time, watching the Raws and the SmackDowns and the pay-per-views, he was so good back then. And they kind of went into how they actually got into the Badass Undertaker character, because obviously the regular Undertaker character, the one that we all know and love today, was getting a bit stale. There wasn't much creative leeway. It's always going to be the same thing. It's typical. Only certain storylines would work. It's very difficult to write. There's so many things that went into it. So he decided to have a change in character and become a little bit more free and expressive, and he's able to speak properly. He's able to become more of Mark Calloway in a way as well than just Undertaker. And of course, keeping old elements such as tombstones, choke slams, maybe the rest in peace here and there. It's everything. But besides that, that was a brilliant introduction into the badass character that we all know and love, and most of us wish we saw to see return. And we saw it return. Not completely, but definitely enough to the point where you say majority of the Undertaker's match against AJ Styles was badass Undertaker, if not all of it. And that's great. And I truly missed it, and I think what a better way to go out as one of the characters the Undertaker chose instead of having it in a way he chose for him, which is, it's beautiful. It's definitely beautiful. And it goes into the fact leaning towards Elimination Chamber WrestleMania time, and obviously we all know how this happens. This has happened very recently. I've actually made videos on this as well, so it's really interesting to see how the things that I made a few months ago is coming back into correlation now, and I'm still doing what I do. So yeah, it's very, sometimes it makes me smile, but also this episode was no smiling matter especially during the last few minutes, the last half an hour that it went on. There was some sad things here. So firstly, let's get into the COVID-19 situation. Now, I'm not going to talk too much into this because, again, I've made videos on this before. My opinions haven't really changed since then. Of course, things have gotten a little bit better over time, but there's still issues there. So if you haven't seen those videos, go watch them. But on the Undertaker's perspective, he thought it was extremely weird, strange, how COVID-19 basically took the whole WWE fans out of the arena, how they weren't going to go and attend an 85,000 crowd at WrestleMania, how they're going to have to adjust in order to get a match, and they adjusted well. So they obviously thought this burial match, I don't know what it was called, boneyard match, I think it is called, and basically they're doing it in some sort of boneyard, of course, where he dug his own grave and everything. And honestly, that match was perfect for the Undertaker because it's basically his environment, really. And it's just so good to see the behind the scenes of them actually filming, cutting, having a bit of a break in between, knowing how Undertaker was feeling the nights before the show where they were practicing it. I love seeing these type of things. I love to see how a piece of art gets made. In a way, it's similar to a music video. You want to see the behind the scenes. A TV show, like I don't know, like what's the biggest TV show you know? Friends, let's say, or The Big Bang Theory. Something's just so televised and it's loved by so many people. You want to see the backstage. You want to see the bloopers, the behind the scenes. This is no different. You wanted to see what went on for that match. You wanted to see the highlights, of course. You wanted to see how they did it. You want to see where they did it. And they made so much out of so little during that match. And that's where Undertaker, AJ Styles, and WWE as a whole, the entire crew, to those who are not named, to those who clearly have the higher up in productions, everybody made the best out of that situation. And that's why that match was pure magic. And that's why WWE, from WrestleMania till now, have earned a lot more respect out of me for how much they actually go through just to get a match that was only 25 minutes and made it feel so movie-like. And WWE have done this before with multiple movies, but to have it as a match, what they did in such a little area of space, basically abandoned really, and they made it look like... They made it look incredible. So WWE, you've earned a whole level of respect for me in terms of that. Your production is seriously second to none. I don't think there's a company out there, maybe Disney, maybe Marvel, but besides those, seriously, I don't think there's anyone that can match the production that WWE can pull off sometimes. Pure magic that match was. And even Undertaker felt it himself. But obviously, there were a little bit of things that happened before his match. Obviously, he mentioned his dad, his brother, I believe his name was Tim. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm apologize. His brother Tim passed away from a heart attack, I believe a few nights, or if not the night before the show, which was, it really hit him hard. It hit him hard in the interview having to talk about it, and it hit him hard during that time. And knowing that he had to call everybody, all of his brothers, he had to call his mother, he had to call everybody just to give that information. It was... Look, just imagine it happened to you, losing, like knowing that you have a big, let's say you work at an office, you have a big presentation, you have something major going on that could potentially change your career forever, but knowing the night before something tragic happened, one of your family members passed away, it's probably the toughest feeling to go through, knowing that you still have to do your job, but at the end, you don't want to do your job because something so bad happened to you, it's going to affect it. And Undertaker, of course, being the company man, he just fought on, and he did it. And terrible circumstances that he put that match in, but maybe that's what, this is just me speaking out of line here, maybe it's just not necessarily what Undertaker feels, but maybe all of this made it a little bit more special in terms of all the circumstances that were put in front of him, and he overcame them all and put on one hell of a match, fitting enough for a retirement match if he decides to do it. Now, I'm not saying in any way that this makes this match acceptable for a death. No way, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that maybe this death helped contribute something special to this match. I didn't really know about it, but now that I know about it, it makes the match so much, I guess, more... not interesting, I can't think of the word. I guess a little bit more intriguing to see how things went on, even when Undertaker wasn't at his best. And look, it's just it's a very touchy subject. I don't want to go too much into this because I feel like talking about people's deaths sometimes is very disrespectful. Even if it's not disrespectful, it's a very touchy subject, so I'm going to leave that alone. But yeah, again, if you really want to know more information, Undertaker speaks about this more himself, and of course no one better to listen to than obviously Undertaker's family and Undertaker himself. So go check the Last Ride Chapter 5 out if you want to know more. I'm going to move on from that. So basically, he also mentions Michelle McCool's, I believe it was nephew that passed away, and obviously that hit hard as well. And he talks a lot about Kobe Bryant, meaning of the two worlds here, with Kobe Bryant, obviously a legacy, a star, an absolute icon beyond sports, and Undertaker is like that as well. And I feel like the reception is going to be relatively the same with the Undertaker. Everybody around the world is going to feel it. But with Kobe Bryant obviously being so sudden, it gives more perspective on Undertaker and his family. Now, again, I don't want to go too much into Kobe Bryant's death or the nephew. I just want to leave it alone at this time. It's just not, it's a touchy subject, really. And I don't want to get emotional, but still, like, Kobe Bryant's death still hits me a lot. So I just want to leave this alone, and hopefully I'll be able to keep my calm. Anyway, it goes on to, yeah, AJ Styles, Undertaker had an amazing match despite all the circumstances, all the scenarios put in front of him. and obviously Undertaker cut his arm early in the match, and they had to fix that up and everything. And then he talks about riding away into the sunset. Cowboys finally get to ride off into the sunset, well, I think the quote was. And it basically goes on to say that he's okay now. That match was fitting enough for him. What a hell of a way to end it. That he liked the bike and the bandana. He liked the ending, and he rides off into the sunset, which means a lot more. And he goes on to say that he has a second life to follow now. He has his wife and his kids, but he also has the WWE, and WWE is his family, it's his home, it's his life. But it's time to focus on his other life as Mark Calloway with Michelle McCool and his daughter, and they're gonna go and have a wonderful time, a wonderful life together. It's a good ending to the documentary, but he did give a little hint that he has no desire whatsoever to go into a wrestling ring again, but he gave a little hint that it might not be over. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a big hint, breaking news type scenario until it happens, but he said that if there's an emergency, then there's something that Undertaker needs to consider when it comes to wrestling. If Vince McMahon needs him, he's still willing to go and do it. So in the end, we don't know if there's going to be an emergency ever again for The Undertaker, but time is not on his side in terms of wrestling. So obviously the emergency would have to be very short term. But at this time, I think this is the perfect match to go off on. But if he decides to come back, again, he wants to write his own story. Maybe he does want to have a wrestling match with a crowd to finish it off. I don't know. In the end of the day, I don't know. I'm not The Undertaker. I can't tell you these things. But it is a good way to go at this time, but he's also given a hint that if WWE needs him and Vince needs him, he will consider coming back again. So, in the meantime, I'm going to take it as Undertaker is semi-retired. If there's nothing going on for him, then he will not come back. But if they desperately need him, then he will consider it. That's basically what I think at the moment. And that ends the Undertaker Last Ride Chapter 5 review, documentary, reaction, whatever you want to call it. This has been a fantastic documentary, and in my eyes it was better than The Last Dance, because The Last Dance kind of just sold people out left, right and center. This one truly went into the Undertaker's thoughts, reactions, and everything like that. With Michael Jordan's documentary, it's just a bit, he did this, he did that, I can't believe he did this, I took it personal, you know? And even though I really enjoyed that documentary, because it's about the team that I love, it's about the player that I love, this one felt a little bit more sentimental, emotional. It felt amazing to watch this documentary. I had a blast, and I thank The Undertaker for doing this, and I can guarantee you the next WrestleMania, you can see The Undertaker. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't even need to think twice, blink at it, because I think it's definitely going to happen. Again, I saw a lot of things saying this documentary is going to be being put on just so they can actually get The Undertaker into the Hall of Fame to make a proper speech without thinking, oh my goodness, he's broken character for the first time. So fair enough. And if that's the case, you'll see him in the Hall of Fame next year, and no one deserves it more. I can't think of anybody that deserves it more than The Undertaker. I mean, the guy has 30 years. Oh, wow. That's true love and dedication for your craft. And one day I hope that I can get to that level when whatever I decide to do in the future, whether it's still going to be YouTube or anything else I decide to do, I hope I can have that same love and passion that The Undertaker did. That's the message at the end of the day. Even though he was reluctant to leave, he loved it, man. And that's what can you ask for in life if you don't love what you do, man? That's like the best thing you could possibly ask for. Anyway, enough about that. I don't want to get too emotional. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on. Next Monday, you will not see an Undertaker video unless they decide to put a secret chapter or something like that. But in the meantime, this was a fun ride for the last ride, and there's no better way to take a ride off than reviewing The Undertaker. So have a wonderful and safe day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.